Moshe Kala did not learn in the Mir as a bacher, he now travels to the yeshiva several times a year to learn Bahasmada. He has become one of the yeshiva's major supporters because he is someone who cares passionately about Torah and about the yeshiva. Like Rav Nosson Tzvi Zatzal, Rav Moshe Kala is irrational in his love for Klal Yisrael. As his neighbor in Flatbush, I witnessed that through his commitment and support for Kiruv, including the creation of a remarkable organization, the Brooklyn Jewish Experience. I witnessed that through the commitment and support for Lamdei Torah and the dignified manner in which he elevates their self-esteem. And as campaign chairman of the Mir, I have witnessed that through his generosity for the yeshiva and his efforts to cause others to become involved, we are having this amazingly successful dinner. It is a great privilege for the yeshiva to honor him this evening, and a great privilege, personal privilege, for me to ask him to address the Olam as guest of honor. Moshe, please come.
Gotta build a new house for that.
Al, thank you for those kind words. Rishus, Rosh Yeshivas Mir, other Rosh Yeshivas here, Chashav Rabbanim, Avi Mari, and Frat Rebbetzin Leah Finkel, Kol Kahal HaKodesh Hazeh. Baruch Shechiyanu V'Kimanu, Yonu Lazman Hazeh. I want to give Shvach to Rabbeinu Shalom, this incredible schos that I've been given. I stand before you, humble, knowing that all I am is a shliach that represents a yeshiva that started almost 200 years ago. The only yeshiva that for the most part remained completely intact through Churban Europe. The Nisim are well known, and they continue to this very day. A yeshiva that produced the likes of Les Yehuda Finkel, Zechat Tzadik Levracha, Rabbi Yerucham Levavitz, Rav Chaskel, the list goes on. And today, that we have our own Rav Les Yehuda Finkel Shlita, as well as Rav Asher Arieli, Rav Nissen, Rav Yosef Elephant. I can go on, but everybody here knows the quality of the Torah that exists in the Mir. Which yeshiva, which shul in America, or really throughout the world, doesn't have some connection to the Torah that came from the Mir? If you think about it, practically every Rav was a Talmud of the Mir. If he wasn't a Talmud from the Mir, there's no question about it that the Torah that was learned in the Mir made an enormous impact on him. When you've appeared a shir, there's no question that there was a Chedusha of Nachum open. When a Rebbe prepares a shir today, I have no doubt that he's listening to a shir from Rav Asher Arieli. The Torah of the Mir is eternal. And I'm standing here representing this institution. I am deeply, deeply humbled. I want to thank my incredible parents, my father, who instilled in me a tremendous love for Torah, my mother, who instilled what it means to be a Baal's Chesed, and I happen to be fortunate enough to have my grandfather, Rav Yankel Moskowitz, here tonight. I'll talk about him a little more. I'm going to start to cry, but I want to wait to cry for later. So I'll just tell you really simple. There's a man who has a shoe store that gives away more shoes than sells them. There's a man who now cashes checks. He thought of a new idea. He cashes checks every morning. But for some reason, many of the checks just never go into the bank. That is who I learned from, and I have a lot to be proud of. I want to thank my wife, my Ishes Chayil Rivki, my true Eza Kenegdai. that always has a quick yes whenever it involves tzedakah and chesed. If I want to go learn in the Mir, yes. If I want to host a Rashiva, yes. And like Rabbi Kiva says, Shali shalchem shalahi. Whatever I deserve, she really deserves it all. And I also want to mention, while I'm talking about wives, I've been involved in this campaign for almost 3 months. I cannot begin to tell you the effort that the people who honored together with me in Naskanim, you know who you are, what an incredible, incredible honor it was to work together with you, and most importantly, your incredible wives. For a wife to give up precious time for a husband to spend at home every single night, on a Sunday, every free minute, takes an extra level of Mesiras Nefesh. And I just want to mention the Gemara Brachos that talks about Gedei Avtacha Shetichna HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised L'Nashim Yaisim and Anashim, even more so. And one of the cases that the Gemara brings down is, how does a woman earn it? She can't sit and learn. Besides putting our Heilige children on a school bus and sending them off to yeshiva, it's also to send their husbands to learn and to wait for them. And Kal v'chomer, if you're sending your husband out there to collect money so others can learn, you will be good bench. There's no question about it. So as you already heard, I wasn't a convert of the Mir. So people have asked me, how did the Mir Yeshiva get you? So I'd like to explain it. It's really very different. The question is, how did I get to Mir Yeshiva? How was I so lucky? So I'm going to tell you the story. About 7 years ago, I was learning at the Yachakal in the Mir Yeshiva. The Yachakal actually had a Goodness Yisrael. And one of the speakers was Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel. I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't know who he was before then. And I didn't really know that much about the Mir Yeshiva. I'd never been to that. I never saw the yeshiva. I, of course, heard about it, but I didn't know what the yeshiva was about. Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel was scheduled to speak. And I watched a man come in a wheelchair. And someone said, that's the Rashiva, that's Rav Nosson Tzvi. And I watched him, and I couldn't believe my eyes. And I said, that's the man that has 5,000-6,000 students in his yeshiva? Yeah, that's the Rosh Yeshiva. I'll never forget, the Yeshiva went up to the dais, they wheeled him up in a wheelchair, and he tried to get out of the wheelchair. And everybody who saw the Yeshiva struggle knows what a horrible sight it is for a person to see the Yeshiva struggle. And the people sitting next to him said, no, don't worry about it, you don't have to get up. You could speak from the wheelchair. And he said the words I'll never forget. He said, no, if people come to learn Torah, I'm going to stand up for them. And he continued to fight his way up to the mic, and he stood up and he spoke for 10 minutes. I decided right then and there that I wanted to see what this yeshiva was about. And I remember going there for the first time, walking down Beis Yisrael, walking to the first building, into the next building, into the next building, into the next building. I was mesmerized. The Kol Torah that I saw, the Limna Torah, blew me away. And I said to myself, I said, the next time I come to Eretz Yisrael, the next time I have some time, this is where I want to learn Torah, in this base medrash. As it was, I used to go away in the summer, like many of us do, and I said to my Chaver Samori Ritterman, I said, make sure I'm going to keep my word. And trust me, he did every week. He said, Moshe, got the tickets ready? And Baruch Hashem, I could not let the Yitzhara change my mind, and I ended up learning at the yeshiva, and it was the most incredible 10 days that I ever had. And Baruch Hashem, for the last 7 years, it's been repeating itself again and again. That is how I found the Mir Yeshiva. And I also found the yeshiva because every single time I would come to learn, I would first stop off to get a bracha from him. And I would ask him permission to learn in the yeshiva. And everybody knows what the yeshiva looked like, sitting there like a melech when you opened up the door with his beautiful smile. He would say, of course, Moshe, of course, it's so good to see you back. And when I would leave, I would never leave before I went over to him and told him Shtickle Torah. And the last time I saw him, I told him Shtickle Torah, and he asked me to bend down. He gave me a kiss. He said, beautiful, beautiful. And that's a kiss that I'll never forget. Who was Rav Nosson Tzvi? Do we even begin to understand who Rav Tzvi was. The doctors couldn't understand it. The people who saw him each and every day couldn't understand how a person like that could exist, how he could raise money for 7,000 people to learn. You know what it was for him to sit on a plane, to come raise money, and for people to run away when they knew he was coming. I'll tell you over one quick story that I think personifies who Rav Tzvi is and really sends the message home. There's so many stories of books written, but my Chavrusa Paul Rotten told me that shortly before Rav Tzvi was nifter, he got up after he made a siyum, and he told everyone there, he says, I want to tell you what is behind my success, what gets me through the day, how do I do it? I'm going to give you the secret. And everyone sitting there was waiting for some mind-blowing revelation. Like, what is it? How did you do it? And he says, let me explain to you. He goes, comes at the end of the night, I haven't slept, and I've tossed and I've turned, and it's time to go down, and I say to myself, the Rebbeinu Shalom certainly would understand. I'm an Einis, I'm not really mechuyev, I don't have to get up. Let me stay in bed. There's really no reason why I could daven over here. And then I say to myself, if the Rebbeinu Shalom was sitting right next to me, what would he really want me to do? And I jump up the minute I think that. I get on my feet and I run. I don't walk, I run. And that is how Rav Tzvi lived his life. The Rebbeinu Shalom was always standing next to him, always getting ready to jump. There is no doctor who can explain something like that. Only the Koyach HaTorah and the Koyach HaVahavas Hashem. I remember when I was in the yeshiva, Rav Tzvi asked Achirusa, he was making a siyum on Pesachim at the time, and he told Achirusa, he says, please make sure that Moshe comes to the siyum, I want him to come. I said, okay, we'll go to the siyum. Remember, I was at the siyum, I think this was about 2 years ago, 2 years before Rashi was nifter, and I remember that Rashi was sitting there like a melech. Everybody knows how the Yeshiva sat, surrounded by the other Yeshivas, and it must have been 500 people there making a siyum. And I remember his smile. He was just looking with such nachas, like a father, at his kids making a siyum. And they were singing Yom Al Yemei Melech while they wheeled him out. And I went over to him, and I took his hand, and he put his hand on my hand, and he looked at me and he said, now you understand. He said, this is what it's about. And that was Rav Tzvi Finkel, and that was my relationship in the mirror. So the last time I was at the mirror, I was there this past Elul for 10 days, was a time that the government announced their budget cuts, that every family with children was going to get cut dramatically. And I was there that day when it happened. But I want you to know something. I had no idea until my Chavrusa said, by the way, today was the day that everybody in this base medrash got cut by 25 to 50%. And I said, what? Today? I was here, no one said a word. He goes, exactly, no one said a word. That's the point. Nobody ever says a word over there. All they want to do is they want to learn Torah. And I want to tell you something. I said this to Yeshiva, and I know it's true because I felt it myself. If you put a check for $1 million on the bima, the Mir Yeshiva, middle of first Seder, and you give a clap on the bima, and you said, I have $1 million here available for anybody who wants to get up and take it. There's one condition. You could be an Elchiyid, you can even learn an hour a day, you can daven 3 times a day, your Yiddishkeit can remain completely intact. One condition, you cannot sit and learn the entire day. I'm telling you that I know, and the Yeshiva knows, and everybody who's been in the Beis Medrash and the Mir knows that check would still be sitting there. I have no question in my mind. That is what Torah is about in the Mir Yeshiva. And it doesn't matter if the government is going to cut it, and it doesn't matter what anyone's going to do, that's never going to change. Like Rav Moshe told me, he said, we're going to go to the prisons to teach Torah. I don't care where we have to go, but it's never going to stop. And the women that came to the husbands said, the husbands came home. I said, I feel bad, there's no food at home, we're going to go to work. Rav Moshe told me that their wives themselves said, no. That's not what I married. I didn't marry someone to go to work. I married someone to learn Torah. And that's exactly what they continue doing. truth is that this is really where my speech as the guest of honor is supposed to end. And I would say something about B'Yisrael Tzedek, and I get maybe a round of applause perhaps. But as a Rebbeinu Shalom would have it, I got a message that I have to say something else. You asked me, when do you get these messages? So let me explain. 2 years ago, I was leaving my building, one of the buildings. I'm a developer, and I build buildings. And as I was leaving the building, I remember turning around, and you know, when you build, as the building goes up, you look, you say, wow, it's getting bigger, I can see the end of the building, I can finally see what it's gonna look like. I remember that day we put the windows in, and I looked around and I said, wow, that's a nice building. I was proud of myself. A minute later, I got a text message. Did you hear about Shlomi Gross? And that's when I found out that we lost our dear friend Shlomi Gross. Tonight is Shlomi Yehuda ben Avram Yaakov's yard side. So that's why, just like the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted me to get the message, just when I was looking at the building thinking that buildings mean anything, is exactly that I'm standing up here the night of his yard site. And I don't have to tell people here, you know who he was. So I want to just tell you, because it is his yard site, I can't sit down. I want to share something with you as friends, as fellow Machshivei B'nai Torah. Chas v'shalom, don't stand up here and give mussar, and especially to the people who've done beyond what's expected from them by giving more and more and more. But I want to tell you, when I was in the Mir Yeshiva this summer, I saw things that I never want to see again. I saw B'nai Torah waiting online for bread. I want to repeat that. I saw lines of B'nai Torah waiting for bread. I'm not talking about Shanghai, I'm talking about Mir Yerushalayim. This past Elul, hundreds of B'nai Torah waiting online. And you know what else I saw? I saw kids down the block from the Mir going through the garbage, looking for food. So when people tell me, is the matzah really so bad? I say, if you only saw what I saw, you would know how bad the matzah is over there. And I can tell you, I have story after story after story. People are putting their kids to sleep hungry over there. There are mothers that are putting the kids on the bus without breakfast, with tears falling on their kids' yarmulkes, telling them, wait until lunch. The yeshiva will give you something to eat, don't worry about it. There are kids going to sleep without the lights on, because the lights have been shut off weeks ago. But they wake up, the kids scared, and the parents have to deal with that. That's what's going on in Yerushalayim. Let me ask you something. And again, I'm only sharing here because I feel I'm with 2,000 people that can feel what I feel. If I stood up here and I said to you that I got a phone call that every single Sefer Torah in Eretz Yisrael was stolen last night, and it's being held in a building. The building is full of explosives. The Sefer Torah are laying on the floor, and they already have gasoline on them, and they've already been stepped on. Unless we came up with $500 million by tomorrow morning, every single Sefer Torah is going to get destroyed. I have no doubt that if I went around and you went around and you told people, we would raise the money, no question about it. We would have no choice, because what would we ever tell the generations later that we allowed that to happen? Would we go to people and get the response, you know, I can understand 10, 20% of the Torahs you need, but why do you need so many Torahs? How many Torahs do we need? Would you get the response from somebody that would say, you know, what happens next year? They may steal the Torahs again. The system is broken. I know that it's not the response we get. And Chaz de Hashem, the Rebbeinu Shalom has given us the ability and the yichilas to be able to raise money. Why are the kids in Eretz Yisrael, why the living Sefer Torah, which the Gemara Makos clearly says that if a Sefer Torah falls down and a Talmud Chacham falls down, it's a question of who you pick up first. You have to take a kriya when a Talmud Chacham dies. The Gemara seems to imply that a Talmid Chacham as Moshe was there Sefer Torah. Why are the kids of the Sefer Torah, why are the Sefer Torah being trampled on? We have to do whatever we can to tell people that that's really what's going on, and we have to put a stop to it immediately. We have to show everybody in the world, befrat the secular Jews, that tell us that we're full of baloney, that the Torah is really meaningless to us, because when it comes time to fight for it, we'll let them fight for it, but when it comes time to pay for it, are we ready to pay for it? We have to make a Kiddush Hashem. Pesach is in 3 weeks. We have an opportunity to go to the Seder with biggest Gemilas Chasadim in the world, Baruch Hashem, that the government stopped helping the Yidden there, that we can do it. They don't deserve it. We deserve it. Could you imagine when you make Kiddush on Pesach and you have a list of people's names that you helped, to know that you helped make a Seder? Could you imagine that we can get the last 2 chalukas of the Mir Yeshiva paid up before Pesach, what a Kiddush Hashem would be? We can do it. With Rabban Shalom's help, we will do it. I want to thank everybody here for being a part of this wonderful, wonderful mitzvah, and for giving me the opportunity to present your example for you. And walk together and we can share